Hello students, myself Dr. Himani. I am Assistant Professor of Economics in Dayanand Mahila Mahavidyalaya, Kurukshetra. Today I am going to explain you Keynesian theory of income and employment. Keynesian theory of income and employment, which is the modern theory of and employment, is given by famous economist Lord J.M. Keynes in his book The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, 1936. According to Keynes, the classical view that there is always full employment in the economy is not valid. Keynes is of the opinion that there is always less than full employment situation in the economy. And the main reason for this unemployment is the shortage of effective demand. And if we want to remove this unemployment, then we have to increase the effective demand. There are some arguments of Keynesian theory. First one is money illusion. There is money illusion, or there is a belief in the laborer that when their nominal wages will increase, then their real wages or their purchasing power will also increase. But this doesn't happen. When their nominal wage increases, then prices also increases and their purchasing power will not increase, or there will be no increase in their money wages. Second argument is wage rigidity. Wage rigidity means wages cannot be reduced beyond a certain limit, because when wage reduced beyond a certain limit, then trade union will oppose and will demand more wages. Third argument is of effective demand. Effective demand is that demand for which a supply is available. For example, effective demand is that demand where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Now, Keynesian model is based on certain assumptions. First assumption is of perfect competition in economy. Then the model is applicable in short period only. Closed economy, there will be underemployment equilibrium, saving and investment are equal. Money also acts as a store of value. Labor has money illusion, which we have already discussed. Keynes ignored the role of government as a spender or as a taxer. Diminishing marginal productivity law is applicable here. Labor is the only variable factor of production. There is no time lag, and Keynes assumed interest as a monetary phenomena. Based on these assumptions, Keynesian model can be explained by this chart. Here, level of income or employment depends on level of effective demand. Effective demand is that demand where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Aggregate supply has two components. First is factor cost and second is normal profit. Or in short, we can say that aggregate supply depends on the cost of factor of production and the normal profit which a producer want to gain. Similarly, aggregate demand. We have already discussed that in a two-sector closed model, aggregate demand is equal to consumption plus investment. Consumption depends on national income and propensity to consume. Similarly, investment depends on rate of interest and marginal efficiency of capital. Rate of interest can be fixed where demand for money and supply of money are equal, and money is demanded for three motives: transaction motive, precautionary motive, and speculative motive. Similarly, marginal efficiency of capital depends on two parts: prospective yield and supply price. So here we can show that level of employment depends on effective demand, and if there is unemployment in economy, it means there is a lack of or deficiency of aggregate demand or effective demand. If you want to increase this effective demand, then you have to increase aggregate demand. When there will be increase in aggregate demand, there will be increase in effective demand, and level of employment will also increase or unemployment will reduce. Keynes explained this with the help of a table and a diagram. Here we have taken a simple table. In first column, we have taken unemployment. In second column, we have shown aggregate demand, which is the sum of consumption plus investment. And in third column, we have taken aggregate supply. Level of employment. In first row, we have taken it as 0. It means when we employed no person or employment level is 0, then there will be no supply. As soon as employment will increase, aggregate supply will also increase. But at 0 employment level, aggregate demand is not 0. As employment will increase, aggregate supply increase, demand will also increase. But in psychological law of consumption, we have studied that increase in income is always more than increase in consumption. So change in aggregate demand is less as compared to change in aggregate supply. This is the diagram. Here on y-axis we have taken the level of employment, on x-axis we have taken aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Aggregate supply curve, as we have shown in table, that it starts from 0. Aggregate supply is continuously increasing as the level of employment is increases, and when full employment is achieved or at the level of full employment, aggregate supply becomes constant. Aggregate demand, it never starts from 0. We have started it from here. Aggregate supplies also increases as the level of employment increases, but this increase or this change in aggregate demand is less as compared to aggregate supply. At point E, aggregate demand and aggregate supply both are equal. So this is the level of equilibrium. Here the level of employment will be ON. If we take the case or level of even, here aggregate demand curve is greater than aggregate supply curve. As AD is greater than AS, there will be increase in employment and employment will continue to increase until AD and AS become equal. Similarly, in any case, if we will be at the level E2, then at that level aggregate demand will be less than aggregate supply. So level of employment will reduce and will continue to reduce until aggregate demand and aggregate supply become equal. This is the level of full employment. So here we have equilibrium in case of underemployment equilibrium. Another diagram for this is this one. Underemployment equilibrium. This diagram is same as previous. Here OYF is the level of full employment, ON is the equilibrium employment level, OYF minus ON is NYF. So this is unemployment in the economy. Now Keynes gave the solution to remove this unemployment. He said that the reason for this unemployment is the deficiency of aggregate demand. If you want to reduce this unemployment, then you have to increase aggregate demand. So this is the diagram how to achieve full employment situation. Aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Initially both are equal at point E where level of employment is ON, but the full employment level is OYF. So NYF is the unemployment. To reduce this unemployment, we have to increase aggregate demand. But aggregate demand has two components, consumption plus investment. Keynes is of the view that in short period consumption cannot be increased. So if you want to increase aggregate demand, then you have to increase investment. So when we will increase investment, aggregate demand curve will shift from AD to AD1. AD1, which is equal to consumption plus investment plus change in investment, and we will achieve full employment equilibrium level. If beyond this point again we will change investment, then aggregate demand curve will shift from AD1 to AD2 and equilibrium will be established at point E2 where AD and AS are equal. This equilibrium is called over full employment equilibrium, because at that level of employment will not change. So this is underemployment, this is full employment, and this is over full employment equilibrium. Keynesian model can be explained with the help of some equations also. Keynes showed that level of income or level of employment depend on level of employment. Level of income depend on level of employment. And in labor market, supply of labor is the function of wage rate, nominal wage rate. There is direct relation between these two. And demand for labor is the function of real wage rate. Real wage rate is money wage rate divided by price level. There is inverse relation between these two. For equilibrium, labor demand for labor and supply of labor should be equal. Similarly, in money market, supply of money and demand for money should be equal. And now money supply remains constant, but the demand is always for three purposes: transaction motive, speculative motive, and precautionary motive. For precautionary motive and transaction motive, money demand depends on income level. But for speculative purpose, the demand for money depends on market rate of interest. Similarly, for equilibrium, investment and saving should also be equal. Investment is the function of rate of interest. There is inverse relation between these two. But saving is the function of income and there is direct relation between these two. So here we have taken three equilibrium situation for labor market, demand for labor, supply of labor; for money market, supply of money and demand of money, and investment and saving should also be equal. So this is all about Keynesian model. This model is criticized by some economists on some grounds like unrealistic assumption of perfect competition. It ignored the long period equilibrium based on the assumption of closed economy, economics of depression, static model, not a journal theory. Concept of equilibrium given by Keynes is self-contradictory, and there is limited applicability of the multi